and adulation he deserves.
It's like unconquered territory, sort of.
On August 9th, 1986, Freddie Mercury walked onto that massive stage for what would become his final live performance. His doctor had already warned him not to sing. His voice was fading fast, and the exhaustion was visible. But Freddie refused to stop. That night, something tragic also unfolded in the crowd during Who Wants to Live Forever, and the whole atmosphere shifted from electric to haunting in seconds. What followed left everyone speechless. John Deacon's emotional outburst backstage and Freddie's sudden disappearance right after the show became the talk of rock history. Fans were left asking, what really happened during Queen's last concert? Freddie Mercury was born on September 5th, 1946, in Zanzibar, a small island that was then under British protection. His parents were Parsi and followers of the Zoroastrian faith, one of the world's oldest religions. From the very beginning, Freddie was unique. He was born with 4 extra teeth, and he later believed that they helped shape his incredible 4-octave voice. Those extra teeth, he once said, gave him room, literally, for sound to soar. Freddie's childhood was full of colors and cultures. African, Arab, and Indian influences surrounded him, shaping the bold and dramatic style he later became famous for. But when Freddie was 17, everything changed overnight. In 1964, the Zanzibar Revolution broke out, and life became dangerous for families like his. Violence filled the streets, and to survive, the Bulsaras fled to England. It was the kind of escape that would change his destiny forever. Before that, though, Freddie's earliest years were spent in India. At just 8 years old, he was sent to St. Peter's School in Panchgani, a British-style boarding school near Mumbai. That's where the name Freddie first appeared, and so did his passion for music.
Yeah, he came to see us play. We had a little group called Smile, and Freddie came along to watch, and he was really, really enthusiastic and full of energy.
One of his teachers noticed his rare talent and urged his parents to pay extra for piano lessons, a decision that would spark a legend. At school, Freddie formed his very first band called The Hectics with 4 of his classmates, and from the start, it was clear he had something special. They played upbeat rock and roll hits from legends like Cliff Richard and Little Richard, and even though Freddie was only 12, he was already stealing the spotlight with his energy and talent. He was obsessed with music, from British rock to Bollywood voices like Lata Mangeshkar, whose powerful tone would later inspire his breathtaking stage performances. Even back then, Freddie began mixing sounds and styles, blending Indian rhythm with Western rock. That fearless fusion would one day help Queen stand apart from every other band in the world. When his family moved to England, life wasn't easy. They settled in a small home in Feltham near London, and Freddie suddenly found himself in a new country, a new culture, and facing financial struggles. But he refused to give up. In 1964, he enrolled at Isleworth Polytechnic to study art, and later continued at Ealing Art College, a place that would shape his future both visually and musically. At Ealing, Freddie sharpened his skills in graphic design, and it was that creative eye that later helped him design Queen's legendary crest, featuring astrological symbols for each band member. To make ends meet, he worked odd jobs, including washing dishes at Heathrow Airport. But even during those tough times, Freddie never stopped dreaming big. It was during his time at Ealing that Freddie met Tim Staffel, who played in a band called Smile, alongside guitarist Brian May and drummer Roger Taylor. Freddie quickly became close friends with them, often hanging around rehearsals, offering creative suggestions.
Things about our relationship through interviews that he did, mainly for David.
And admiring their sound. When Tim left Smile in 1970, Freddie stepped in as the new frontman and changed everything overnight. He convinced them to rename the band Queen, explaining that it sounded majestic, powerful, and dramatic, just like the energy they wanted to bring to the stage. Their very first performance under the name Queen took place in June 1970 at a charity show, marking the beginning of something historic. Still, the lineup wasn't complete. The band searched for a bassist until they finally found John Deacon in 1971, and just like that, the classic Queen we know was born. Around the same time, Freddie decided to transform his identity once more. He changed his last name to Mercury, inspired by a lyric he'd written that said, "Mother Mercury, look what they've done to me." It was a bold, poetic move. a name worthy of a future rock legend. But fame didn't come easy. Queen's first album, released in 1973, didn't even make the UK charts and only reached number 83 in the US. Their follow-up, Queen 2, in 1974, climbed a little higher, but still didn't make the impact they hoped for. The band was frustrated. Their sound was ambitious, their image unique, but the recognition just wasn't coming yet. Then came their third album, Sheer Heart Attack, and with it, Killer Queen. The single was a masterpiece of style and storytelling. Freddie wrote it late one night at his piano, starting with the lyrics first, something rare for him. The song told the tale of a sophisticated high society woman, and what made it so unforgettable wasn't just the lyrics, but the sound itself. Brian May's guitar solo, played using a 6-pence coin instead of a pick, gave the track its sharp edge, while the band layered complex harmonies and textures that made it pure magic.
It took a long while for me to really fall in love with this man. But
Killer Queen shot to number 2 in the UK and number 12 in the US. Queen had finally arrived. Still, not everyone in the band was immediately thrilled. Roger Taylor worried that the song's playful vibe might make fans think they weren't a serious rock band. The debate over including it on the album got heated, and Killer Queen was actually recorded last minute. But in the end, that song changed everything. It opened the doors to global fame. Then came the creation that would rewrite music history, Bohemian Rhapsody. Released in 1975 as part of A Night at the Opera, it was unlike anything the world had ever heard. It took 3 grueling weeks to record, involved more than 180 vocal overdubs, and cost over £40,000, making it the most expensive single ever produced at the time. The song broke every rule: a slow emotional intro, an operatic explosion in the middle, and a roaring rock finale. EMI executives thought it was too long and demanded they cut it for radio play, but Queen refused to compromise. Their manager quietly slipped the track to popular DJ Kenny Everett, and when it hit the airwaves, everything changed forever. The legendary DJ Kenny Everett couldn't get enough of Bohemian Rhapsody. He played it 14 times in one weekend, and fans went absolutely wild. The song shot straight to number 1 in the UK and stayed there for 9 incredible weeks. Years later, after Freddie Mercury's passing in 1991, it returned to the top once again, holding the number 1 spot for another 5 weeks. In the US, it reached number 9 when it first came out in 1976. But when Wayne's World featured it in 1992, it climbed all the way to number 2. That song didn't just top charts, it rewrote them. It sold millions worldwide and became one of the best-selling singles in UK history. But Queen wasn't just changing the sound of rock. They were changing how it looked too. The Bohemian Rhapsody video was shot in just 4 hours on a budget of £4,500, but it forever transformed the future of music videos. The iconic shot of the 4 band members' faces forming a diamond pattern was created with a simple camera trick called visual feedback, yet it looked like pure magic. That image became one of the most recognizable visuals in rock history, and from that moment, every artist wanted a music video. Queen had just invented a new era of promotion and performance, and they didn't stop there. When they released I Want to Break Free, they shocked fans again, this time by dressing in women's clothing, inspired by the British soap Coronation Street. It was cheeky, bold, and hilarious, but not everyone got the joke. MTV banned the video in the US, sparking controversy that only made the band even more legendary. Then came Radio Gaga, one of the most expensive videos ever made at the time, costing around £100,000. It featured futuristic clips from the 1927 classic Metropolis, and Queen paid an extra $100,000 just for the rights to use those scenes. The visuals were stunning, and Freddie's charisma brought it all to life. But as incredible as their videos were, Queen's live shows were something else entirely. During their 1975 A Night at the Opera tour, they introduced a lighting setup that was absolutely massive. 168 spotlights and 12 aircraft landing lights, so bright they needed their own generator. By the time they hit Wembley Stadium in 1986, their light rig had grown to over 1,000 bulbs, including a 5-ton crown-shaped structure that hovered above the stage. Freddie's confidence and stage presence also evolved dramatically over the years. When Queen first started, he was shy and often hid behind his piano. The half-mic stand that became his signature look, that happened by accident. One night his mic stand broke mid-show, and instead of panicking, Freddie owned it. He kept the broken stand, twirling it around like a sword, and it became part of his legend. By 1973, Freddie's fashion sense had exploded into full glam rock. He started painting his nails black, taking cues from Jimi Hendrix, and began wearing flamboyant, eye-catching costumes designed by Zandra Rhodes. One of his most famous outfits, the black and white Harlequin jumpsuit, was so tight it had to be sewn directly onto him before each performance. Then, in the 1980s, Freddie switched it up again. Gone was the glitter. In came the leather, the short hair, and the now iconic mustache. His new look, inspired by the club scene in New York, shocked some fans at first, but it became a symbol of confidence and power. He still loved to play with humor. In I Want to Break Free, he appeared in drag with his mustache still on, which confused many viewers and stirred plenty of conversation. Freddie's stage presence only grew bolder from there. During the 1982 Hot Space Tour, he made headlines when he performed while sitting on the shoulders of a crew member dressed as Darth Vader during We Will Rock You. In Japan, he once stripped down to just a pair of shorts mid-performance, tossing costume pieces into the crowd as he went. His fearless spirit and playful energy made every show unforgettable. By the early 1980s, Queen's sound began to shift again. Freddie and John Deacon wanted to experiment with funk and disco influences, leading to their 1981 album Hot Space. The album divided fans. Some loved the fresh groove, others missed the old rock sound. The single body language pushed boundaries even further, with lyrics and visuals that were considered far too bold for the time. MTV banned the video, and backlash followed. But Freddie didn't back down. In 1985, he poured his heart into his first solo album, Mr. Bad Guy. He spent 2 years in Munich crafting every note, filling the record with upbeat dance rhythms and lush synths. It was Freddie at his most playful and free. He even dedicated it to his beloved cats, writing, "This album is for my cat Jerry, also Tom, Oscar, and Tiffany, and all the cat lovers in the universe. Forget everyone else." It didn't soar on US charts, but it landed in the UK top 10 and gave Freddie the creative spark to keep exploring new sounds. In 1987, he teamed up with opera legend Montserrat Caballé for the Barcelona album, a breathtaking mix of rock and opera that showcased the full force of his voice. The title track became the anthem for the 1992 Olympics in Barcelona, but tragically, Freddie wasn't there to see it performed live. Still, his spirit echoed in every note, powerful, emotional, and timeless. Yet even as his solo work soared, things inside Queen began to crack. After Hot Space, tensions ran high. The members took time apart, and Brian May later admitted, "We hated each other for a while." Recording their 1984 album, The Works, didn't make things easier. At one point, Brian stormed out of the studio and wandered for hours, wondering if Queen was truly over. But deep down, none of them were ready to let go. Not yet. When Queen wrapped up recording The Works, tensions were sky high. John Deacon shocked everyone when he suddenly vanished to Bali without warning. He didn't tell a soul, not even the band. When Freddie found out, instead of getting angry, he sang Bali High from South Pacific as a joke. But deep down, everyone knew things were falling apart. And that wasn't the only controversy surrounding Queen. In 1984, they performed in Sun City, South Africa during the apartheid era, a move that drew intense backlash. Many artists refused to perform there because of the country's racial segregation laws, and Queen's decision landed them in hot water. The musicians' union banned them, and the United Nations publicly criticized the band. Things got so bad that during a 1985 concert in Rio de Janeiro, fans booed them for the first time in their career. Meanwhile, Freddie's personal life was also spiraling. His manager, Paul Prenter, was creating serious problems within the group. Brian May was so frustrated, he refused to even say Prenter's name in interviews, only referring to him as the guy who looked after Fred. The tension behind the scenes was at a breaking point. Then came the day that changed everything. July 13th, 1985. Queen took the stage at Live Aid, the global charity concert that would define rock history. Freddie wasn't feeling his best. His throat was sore, and he'd been struggling with his voice. But when it came time to perform, he refused to back down. At exactly 6:41 p.m., the band hit the stage at Wembley Stadium, and for the next 21 minutes, they delivered what would later be called one of the greatest live performances ever. They tore through snippets of Bohemian Rhapsody, Radio Gaga, Hammer to Fall, and We Are the Champions, and the energy was electric. During Radio Gaga, Freddie clapped above his head, and the entire crowd of 72,000 people followed in perfect rhythm, a moment that would be watched by nearly 2 billion people around the world. Backstage, Elton John couldn't help but joke with them, saying, "You guys just stole the show." And it was true. Live Aid reignited Queen's career and reminded the world why Freddie Mercury was one of the most captivating performers alive. Riding that wave of success, Queen began working on their next album, A Kind of Magic. It was created as the soundtrack for the fantasy movie Highlander, which explored immortality, a theme that felt strangely symbolic. The band dove into new digital recording techniques to give the album a fresh, modern sound. The title track came from a line in the film, but Freddie completely reworked it, which didn't sit well with Roger Taylor, who'd written the original. Another standout track was Who Wants to Live Forever, written by Brian May after watching a particularly emotional scene from the movie. The song featured a massive 80-piece orchestra, blending classical grandeur with Queen's trademark rock power. By 1986, Queen was ready for their biggest spectacle yet, the Magic Tour. It would be their most ambitious and electrifying tour of all time, spanning 26 concerts across 9 countries in just 8 weeks. The scale was staggering. The stage was 160 feet wide, stretching deep into the audience with 2 long walkways. Over 8 miles of cables powered the setup, and the 20-foot-tall video screen was so huge it needed its own generator. The sound system was thunderous. People miles away could hear the music echoing through the air, and nearby villagers even filed noise complaints. But nothing could stop the excitement. Queen was about to make history once again. On August 9, 1986, at 6:41 p.m., Freddie Mercury walked onto the stage at Knebworth Park, unaware that it would be his final live performance with Queen. The crowd was enormous. 120,000 fans packed shoulder to shoulder, screaming his name. The moment the first notes of One Vision rang out, the energy was electric. Freddie wore his trademark white tank top and tight jeans, looking confident as ever. But his health was starting to decline. That morning, his doctor had warned him not to sing. His throat was inflamed, and pushing himself could make it worse. But Freddie didn't care. He told those close to him that the fans came first, no matter what. As he sang "One Man, One Goal, One Mission," his voice cracked slightly, but the audience didn't care. They cheered even louder. Behind the scenes, the band had prepared a backup set list, just in case Freddie couldn't handle the tougher songs. But as the night went on, he silenced every doubt, giving everything he had. During Under Pressure, his voice faltered again on a high note. Instead of stopping, he smiled and turned the mic toward the crowd. In that instant, tens of thousands of voices filled the night, carrying the lyrics for him. It was one of those moments that reminded everyone why Queen wasn't just a band. It was a shared experience. At 8:03 p.m., they performed Who Wants to Live Forever. The atmosphere shifted completely. It was haunting, powerful, and emotional. The words hit deeper than ever before, as if Freddie was singing about his own journey. Fans swayed, tears in their eyes, knowing they were witnessing something truly special. At 8:17 p.m., it was time for Bohemian Rhapsody. One of the most complex songs in Queen's catalog, it demanded every ounce of Freddie's strength, and he delivered. He even sang parts of the operatic section live, something that was usually pre-recorded. When he hit a high note he hadn't dared attempt in years, the crowd erupted into pure chaos. Cheers, screams, and applause that seemed to shake the ground. Finally came We Are the Champions. Freddie's voice cracked again, but instead of retreating, he pushed through and held the note even longer. The crowd's roar was deafening. People miles away could hear it. Then, at 8:59 p.m., Queen ended the night with God Save the Queen, as fireworks lit up the sky. But Freddie didn't leave right away. As the anthem played, he stood perfectly still, eyes closed, soaking in the moment. When the music faded, he turned to the crowd, bowed deeply, and said, "Thank you, lovely people. Good night and sweet dreams." It was 9:02 p.m. No one knew it then, but Freddie Mercury had just given his last live performance. Behind the scenes, emotions were raw. John Deacon, usually calm and quiet, shocked everyone just minutes before the show by throwing his bass guitar across the dressing room, nearly hitting Roger Taylor's drum tech. In 15 years with the band, no one had ever seen him like that. Later, he confessed to Brian May, "I can't do this anymore. It's too much." It seemed like he already sensed this would be their final concert with Freddie. Deacon argued with the sound engineer about his bass levels, but once on stage, played one of his best performances ever, channeling all that emotion into the music. Tragically, that night also saw heartbreak in the crowd. A 23-year-old fan named Michael Jennings collapsed during Who Wants to Live Forever. He was only 50 meters from the stage, and although medics reached him quickly, he couldn't be revived. He was later found to have an undiagnosed heart condition, and the intense excitement and packed environment made it worse. He had won his ticket just 2 days earlier in a radio contest and had told his friend Sarah it was the best night of his life. It was a heartbreaking moment that later inspired stricter safety rules for large concerts across the UK. When the show ended, Freddie didn't stay to celebrate like he usually did. Normally, he'd hang out with the crew, share drinks, and relive the night's best moments. But this time, he left the stage quickly, disappearing just seconds after his final bow. His longtime assistant, Peter Freestone, later revealed that Freddie had received a phone call from his doctor right before the show, and that call changed everything. That phone call before the concert wasn't about scheduling. It was about Freddie's health. It must have been weighing heavily on him that night. The physical toll of performing combined with that news made everything feel heavier. He even left behind his silver bracelet, a piece he had worn to every single show since 1977. A cleaner later found it and returned it to him during the drive back to London. Freddie sat quietly in the car, staring out the window and gently wiping his eyes with a handkerchief. The ride was silent, but his thoughts were loud. Backstage that night, he had a rare moment of vulnerability, turning to his lifelong friend and assistant, Peter Freestone, and whispering, "I don't know if I can do this." Roger Taylor also remembered seeing Freddie alone after the show. When he asked if everything was all right, Freddie smiled faintly and said, "Darling, I think I've given it my all." At the time, Roger assumed he was just exhausted, but later realized it was Freddie's quiet goodbye. Roger still keeps one of the drumsticks from that night in his studio as a personal reminder of the end of an era. John Deacon, who left the public eye years later, said that performance was the hardest of his life. He admitted to crying while playing "These Are the Days of Our Lives" because deep down, he felt it might be their last time together. That night wasn't just a concert. It was history's closing curtain on one of rock's greatest stories. Beyond the stage, Freddie's life was filled with passion, creativity, and deeply emotional relationships. One of the most important people in his entire life was Mary Austin. Freddie met Mary in 1969. He was 24, she was 19, and their connection was instant. They fell in love, moved in together, and even got engaged. But in 1976, Freddie confessed that he was attracted to men. Mary looked him in the eyes and replied softly, "No, Freddie, I think you're gay." It was an honest, emotional moment that ended their romance, but began a lifelong friendship. Freddie always called Mary his one true friend. Even after they separated, he made sure she was taken care of. He bought her a beautiful flat in Kensington in 1980, near his own home. And in his will, he left her half his fortune, including his mansion. Mary was by his side during his final years, and after he passed, she honored his wish to keep the location of his ashes private forever. Freddie also found love later with Jim Hutton, a kind-hearted hairdresser he met in 1985. They stayed together until the end, sharing quiet moments away from the cameras. He was also close friends with Austrian actress Barbara Valentin, who appeared with him in Munich during his creative years. Freddie's personal life was never simple. He loved deeply, sometimes chaotically, and his relationships overlapped, revealing just how complicated his heart really was. Freddie's journey with his identity wasn't easy. Born in 1946, he grew up in a world where same-sex relationships were still illegal in many countries. He knew who he was early on, but had to hide it from the public eye. When asked about his sexuality, Freddie would often laugh or brush it off, calling himself as gay as a daffodil, using humor as his shield. But Freddie was more than a rock icon. He was a true artist. He'd studied art and design in college and loved painting, sculpting, and collecting beautiful things. His home was filled with rare treasures, Picasso and Dali paintings, Japanese woodblock prints, antique glass, and portraits of his beloved cats, which he often referred to as his family. His mansion wasn't just a house, it was a gallery of his soul. In April 1987, Freddie received the news that changed everything. He had HIV. Some signs had appeared years earlier, including a visit to a doctor in 1982 for a small spot on his tongue, but he kept it private. At that time, the fear and stigma surrounding AIDS were massive, and Freddie, always private by nature, chose to protect himself and those close to him by staying silent. Still, rumors began swirling. By 1986, British tabloids were publishing endless stories about his health, especially The Sun, which fueled speculation and added pressure. Within Queen, no one talked about it openly. They respected his privacy. Brian May later explained, "We didn't ask questions because Freddie didn't want us to. Only his inner circle, including Peter Freestone, knew the truth." Peter once shared that Freddie had seen many close friends suffer from the illness, and it haunted him. He often found more comfort talking to his cats than people, even calling home to speak to them when he was away. His humor and warmth never faded, even as he grew weaker. On November 23, 1991, after years of secrecy and speculation, Freddie released a public statement confirming his diagnosis. It was short, heartfelt, and full of dignity, explaining why he had chosen to keep it private. Just one day later, on November 24th, Freddie passed away peacefully at his home in Kensington, surrounded by loved ones. He was 45 years old. The official cause was bronchial pneumonia, brought on by AIDS-related complications. But fans believe he left this world with grace and strength that only he could embody. Even in his final months, Freddie never stopped creating. In 1990, Queen began recording Innuendo, one of their most emotional albums. Knowing his condition was serious, the band changed their work routine. 3 weeks in the studio, 2 weeks off so he could rest. Doctors warned them that time was short, but Freddie refused to slow down. One of the album's most iconic tracks, The Show Must Go On, perfectly captured his unstoppable will. Brian May worried Freddie wouldn't be strong enough to sing it, but Freddie just smiled, took a shot of vodka, and said, "I'll do it, darling." Then, in one flawless take, he delivered one of the most powerful vocal performances in rock history. Even after Innuendo, Freddie kept recording. In May 1991, he worked on Mother Love, though he couldn't finish it. His final recording session took place on May 22, 1991, when he sang A Winter's Tale, a tender, bittersweet song, later featured on Queen's posthumous album, Made in Heaven. Even as his body weakened, his voice soared stronger than ever. Freddie's final public appearance came on February 18, 1990, at the Brit Awards, where Queen received the award for Outstanding Contribution to British Music. When the band walked on stage, the crowd gasped. Freddie looked frail but determined. Brian May gave most of the speech, while Freddie simply said, "Thank you, good night." Those few words carried the weight of a lifetime. Elegant, simple, and unforgettable. In his final months, Freddie's health declined quickly. By June 1991, he stayed mostly at home, surrounded by close friends, his cats, and Mary Austin. He gradually stopped taking his medications, except for pain relief. On November 22nd, he prepared his final public statement with manager Jim Beach, and the next day, it was released to the world. Freddie Mercury left this world on November 24th, 1991, at just 45 years old. His final hours were peaceful. Jim Hutton later said he looked calm and radiant, as if ready for whatever came next. But Freddie's story didn't end there. His legacy only grew. In 1995, Queen released Made in Heaven, an album featuring his final recordings. It sold over 20 million copies and touched hearts across generations. Today, Queen's Greatest Hits remains the best-selling album in UK history, and Freddie's voice continues to inspire billions around the world. His spirit, his artistry, and his fearless authenticity turned him into something more than a legend. he became eternal. So, what do you think made Freddie Mercury so unforgettable? Was it his unmatched voice, his fearless individuality, or the love he poured into every performance? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to hit like, share this video with other music lovers, and subscribe for more incredible stories like this one. See you on the next one.